Hello, I'm very glad that you can join us today for our webinar. We've had a lot of feedback from customers in joint reviews that two areas are of particular interest and worthy of exploring further. And that's what we're trying today in today's webinar. Those two topics are on design and also on NDT. So before I start, just a few housekeeping aspects. From today's webinar, we will share the recording and you can submit your questions anytime and we will follow them up on emails to yourself. Please also keep notified with any updates on our website, which is LRQA.com. Our speakers today, I'm delighted to announce we've got two speakers very knowledgeable in their subject area. So the first presentation will be Partha Brahma, who's our Deputy ASME Service Manager, and he will be discussing the particular area of interest of design, which comes up quite often in joint reviews. And the second presentation is by Carlida, who's recently been appointed as our ASME Service Manager. At LRQA, we've been providing ASME services for our customers now for 50 years, and so I hope you'll find this webinar useful. And so I'd now like to pass over to Partha, who will discuss about the design and how it comes up in joint reviews. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone. It is a pleasure discussing on this topic of Appendix 47. Why Appendix 47? This is something new introduced in 2021 edition of ASME Section 8 Division 1, and our experience with working with our client worldwide, we realized there are a few challenges faced by most of the certificate holders, manufacturer pressure vessel to D1. This is something to do with competency of designer, which was not there till 21. And we have been discussing during our code inspection activities, also during the joint review, the team leaders, they're asking a few questions, which are not very comfortable for many industrial partners. So we will discuss about some of the challenges and try to help you out understand the fundamental of this particular section, mandatory appendix, and how to implement it in a most practicable manner. That is what is our purpose today. During the joint review, this is being discussed. Actually, many of you may have already experienced actually that questions are being asked how to document the competency, whether the criteria is good enough to qualify them as competent designer. The team leaders, since it is a new requirement, I think some of the team leaders also are interpreting the requirements little differently at different places. That throws some challenges. Then some of the smaller organizations, they have limited manpower actually. Sometimes they wonder how they will cope up with all this additional requirement of qualifications. And in fact, many of these manufacturers are small. They depend on outsourced design services. They subcontract design. How do they handle those? That is the challenge. And some of the manufacturers, they have already established system. They have staff already doing the work for last few years. What we do with them suddenly, we can't just throw them out. So these are the very typical challenges. And last but not the least, the documentation and how to present those competencies. So my purpose of talking to you today is basically to give you some idea, guide you through the requirements in a simple manner, and help you find some solution, practicable solution. Before we go to Appendix 47, just let us have a look at the drivers, why we should talk about 47. The requirements are coming from U2B. If you go to Section 8 Division 1, U2B says the manufacturer is responsible for the accuracy of the design and compliance with Section 8 Division 1. How they comply with that, how do they demonstrate? By signing a manufacturer's data report. That is the certificate. So that is the responsibility of manufacturers. You all know about it. And further, U2 also says go to mandatory appendix 10, which is nothing but a quality system standard for a D1 pressure vessel manufacturer. Your quality manual is based on that quality standard, that appendix 10. And appendix 10 is in turn referring to appendix 47, which is the new addition to our section A division 1 code, which is talking about competency of designers. So this is appendix 10. You all must be familiar with that, where they are making direct reference to appendix 47. Now, before going to 47, again, let us have a quick look at a couple of definition. Actually, it is there in the section A division 1, but we need to understand these two entities: certifying engineer and designer. Certifying engineer is an engineer other than technical or technical professional, duly accredited and qualified to practice engineering activity. This is the definition we have taken from the code directly. And designer is a person who is qualified to design pressure vessel in accordance with the division 1, that is section A division 1, by demonstrated knowledge in code requirement and their ability to select the correct design formula. So just keep these two definitions in mind. It will be useful while going through the remaining part of appendix 47. So coming to 47, it says that manufacturer shall designate a designer, engineer, or certifying engineer. Now, please remember these three terms: designer, engineer, or certifying engineer. They are not kind of business title or anything. They are just presented here to differentiate between qualifications. Designer, engineer is more qualified than designer, and certifying engineer is more qualified than engineer. That just remember that much. And one of them has to be designated as a responsible charge. That is what appendix 47 is saying. We'll come to responsible charge a little later. And the manufacturer's quality manual should very clearly say which administrative position should actually designate the responsible charge. Who is, which top management function will designate the responsible charge. Now, what is the responsible charge? It is nothing but a person who perform all the design activities, or traditionally we call designers, who are doing all the design activities and approving the design or controlling the design activity performed by others. So we talked about subcontracted design. In case we subcontract, there should be someone to oversee the activities, to supervise the design activities and control those activities. That is what is a responsible charge. So responsible charge can be a certifying engineer, it can be an engineer, it can be a designer, as I said in the previous slide. This is a big paragraph, don't worry about it. What I'm trying to tell, this is lifted from National Society for Professional Engineers. They are the people who are controlling the professional engineers charters. They have defined the responsible charge. What they say, in short, a responsible charge is a person who is involved with the design process right from beginning till end, right from concept till delivery. So responsible charge is a person or technically qualified person who is involved right from beginning till end of a design process, right? It is not just merely review of the design, like somebody preparing a design and given to a person to review it and approve it. No, that is not a duty of a responsible charge. A responsible charge is directly involved with the design process. Now, if we go to 47-2, that is the second part of the appendix 47, where they say the manufacturer should engage at least one person as a responsible charge. You can have multiple responsible charge. Larger the organization, it is expected you have a number of qualified designers to do the job. But if not, at least one you have to designate to qualify. And they had given some of the requirements. Basically what they say, again, it's the responsibility of the manufacturer to identify and designate those persons that may exercise control of design work performed by others. So it is not just identifying the responsible charge, you also need to identify whether they should control others' activities that need to be mentioned in their quality program. The qualification requirement shall also apply to designers, engineers, and certifying engineers who are engaged by manufacturer by contract. So again, even if it is a contracted designer, subcontracted designer, still we need to apply the same requirement of qualification. Certifying engineers, it is, as I said at the beginning, from definition, they are the people who are accredited to do design. Actually, they are licensed, they are registered, or they are kind of chartered engineer who are professionally qualified or recognized to do engineering activities. So there are 4 routes. There could be a registered professional engineer. Many of you know that in the United States and Canada, they have a process of registering the engineers. So they call registered professional engineer. They are qualified to do this. They can be responsible charge. Or certifying engineers who are member of International Register of Professional Engineer. This is a second route. Outside USA, this is quite popular. International Register of Professional Engineer. The third route could be a member of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, in short we call. So if an engineer is a member, authorized member of this body, he is qualified to do a certifying engineer's role. And the fourth route is basically membership with a European Federation of National Engineering Association, FIANI, which is quite popular in Europe. So any of these 4 routes can take you or can recognize someone as a certifying engineer. Moreover, the certifying engineer should have or shall have at least 4 years of design experience, design of pressure vessel experience. Then they can be called responsible charge. Now coming to engineer. Engineer is not a certifying engineer, so they are not registered professional engineer or that type, but they have degree. They have a technical degree of at least 4-year duration. Regular university degree in engineering, science, or technology, and they must have 4 years of design experience in pressure vessel. So engineer is an entity who is qualified qualified engineer. We call Bachelor of Engineering with 4 years experience in pressure vessel design. The next level is designer. As I said, the designer is actually doing the same design activity, but by education, they may not be a degree holder. They may not be engineering degree holder, but people who have some attended some technical courses, at least of 2-year duration, diploma course or HNC, similar programs, they also can be considered for this responsible charge. Only thing, they should have at least 6 years of experience. So a designer who is not having an engineering degree but having some technical diploma of 2 years duration at least and 6 years of experience can be considered for the role of responsible charge. There is another alternate method for designers. Even if they don't meet the educational qualification requirement of 2-year diploma, still they can be considered in case they have 10 years of experience in pressure vessel design. As an alternative, there are some shops, some of you running both the code stamp. Actually, you have a certificate of authorization for both Division 1 as well as Division 2, U2. U2 also, DIP 2 also requires certain qualification for designers. So you need not maintain 2 separate systems for 2 code, Division 1 and Division 2. You can have a combined one meeting the requirement of Division 2, which is of higher order. Now, if we look at paragraph 47-5, what it says, till now we have seen the qualification experience, education qualification and experience for a responsible charge. Now, over and above, they need certain additional experience in some of the design activities. right? Here you can see there are 5 activities listed here. Performance of numerical analysis, fatigue assessment, fatigue analysis of pressure vessel, design due to seismic reaction, dynamic seismic reaction, design of quick actuating closures, and design not specified in this division. We typically call it U2G. You know about that. You have to go for an alternative design method, you know. So any of this design activity, any one of these 5 design activities require additional experience of 2 years and additional qualification. So till now what we have seen, the responsible charge, the person who is responsible for approving design, should be either certifying engineer accredited or an engineer with engineering degree of 4-year duration plus 4-year experience, or diploma holders with 6 years experience. Plus they need to have additional training and experience in these 5 activities, design activities. If a responsible engineer or responsible charge is not involved with any of these 5 activities, they don't have to have this additional qualification. They can do the routine jobs normally. But in case they are involved with any one of these activity, they need to be qualified additionally. So if it is a numerical analysis, they need to have 2-year experience, additional experience in conducting design analysis using numerical analysis softwares, and they need to be trained by the developer of the software program, or they need to be trained by a license holder from the software developer, or alternatively they can be trained by a certifying engineer. But they need this training plus 2 years additional experience for numerical analysis. Similarly, when it comes to fatigue assessment, they need 2 years of experience in fatigue analysis in a pressure vessel. But this is important, please note, in this case, when the fatigue assessment is a requirement in your design, only 2 years additional experience is not good enough. You need to work under the supervision of a certifying engineer. So this is where Section A Division 1 is mandatorily asking for a certifying engineer to be involved in the design process if there is a fatigue assessment. And for other design activities, like quick actuating closure or U2G kind of design, additional 2 years experience is good enough. You don't need any additional training. Now there is another option given, and this option is given mainly for small shops who are manufacturing simple pressure vessels. It's not a complicated vessels. Designs are all very standard and simpler. There you can actually alter the experience requirement. The education qualification requirement remain the same as we have discussed for certifying engineer, for designer and engineer, but the experience part you can soften down, you can reduce it actually, because it's a small simpler job. You can manage with a lesser experience. Only thing, you need to address it in your quality program. And now what to do with those people? Till now we have talked about responsible charge, having the educational meeting the requirement of education, meeting the requirement of experience and additional training, all fine. But what to do with those who are not meeting those requirements? So don't worry, we don't have to remove them from the job. We can still engage them for the design activities for which they are comfortable. In a sense, they have been doing certain work activities. They can continue doing that work, right? Only thing, they need to do that work under the supervision of a responsible charge. You have already identified a responsible charge. So make sure these people who are not qualified as a responsible charge still continue doing the job under the supervision of the responsible charge. And someday definitely they will build their CV, they will acquire the required experience, and they themselves will also qualify as a responsible charge. So don't worry about it. 47.6 is talking about manufacturer's responsibility. It is very simple. You actually need to identify the qualification criteria depending on the type of job you do, the criticality of your design. You need to set the criteria and document it in your quality system, right? The next step, what you should do, you should identify the people, see how they are meeting the requirement, those specified requirement. If they are meeting the requirement, declare them as a responsible charge or designers who should work under the supervision of a responsible charge. And additionally, you need to set the frequency, the requirement for a frequency to maintain the qualification. You know, you are qualified today doesn't mean that you remain qualified forever without doing a job. So you need to tell them to do some work, some activity, design activity once in a while, maybe once in a year, once in 2 years, up to you. You define the duration, put it in your quality control system. So that's it from my side. I think it is I tried to explain in a simpler way the requirements, and if you have difficulty, you can always talk to our AIs and find out a system which is workable for you. And I'll be happy to receive any feedback further, any questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Partha, for the very technical and informative presentation on Appendix 47. We got some frequently asked questions relating to this topic. So the first question, Partha, hoping you can answer, is how do we document the qualifications of responsible charge and other designers?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, this is a question which is being asked many a time, especially during the joint review. How to present, how to demonstrate the capabilities, you know. So I will tell you, I will suggest keep it simple. Don't worry too much. There is one document you need to designate the responsible charge. So it's just you can design a format of your own where you will say that so and so person is designated as a responsible charge, and you can just add which are the activities he is qualified for. You know, as I mentioned during my presentation, that there are certain activities require additional qualification like numerical analysis. Mention that on that piece of paper and then certify someone who is responsible, person, senior person in the company should sign that. If you want a format, there is a format available in the ASME website. I have given the link here. If you can go through the website, there is a white paper. They call it ASME white paper on Appendix 47. I think you can go through it. It is an interesting piece of document. And there they had given a format of this designation letter. The format is not very ideal, but you can definitely modify it. There is no harm. The second part of documentation is the backup papers. You know, like a copy of CV, the experience records, the educational qualification records, and training records. So I would suggest you make a checklist. You have already said the criteria for qualifying designers. You have already written down that in your quality program. So just make a simple checklist and see whether they're meeting those requirements. Tick the box and attach a piece of paper, as a documentary evidence. So that will be a good piece of paper or file to present to the team leaders and satisfy him.
Excellent, thank you, Partha. Question 2, which we've received, if we can just go on to that slide, is from a manufacturer. And the question is, we are the manufacturer of a bellow expansion joint as per Appendix 26. Do we need to hire a certifying engineer as per Appendix 47, Section 5 to certify the design for fatigue evaluation?
Yeah, thanks. Top question. In fact, I know we had been seeing some of the joint review where the team leaders, they're insisting on appointment of a certifying engineer for doing the fatigue analysis in bellow construction. Let me clarify. Let me explain the actual requirement. When you are doing bellow construction or design of a bellow, a flexible bellow in Division 1, you are going to do it as per Appendix 26. And in the current code in 2023, Appendix 26 is sending you to Division 2, Part 4. And that is a paragraph which is 4.19.3.2 in Part 4 of Division 2. That gives the detail of design and part of it about fatigue evaluation. But I must tell you that Part 4 that is 4.19.3.2, what I said, is design by rule. And if you go through this Appendix 47, they say the certifying engineer is required for fatigue analysis when you do it by according to Part 5, that is analysis actually using a software. It's a stress analysis. In case of bellow construction, we are not doing stress analysis. We are just evaluating the number of cycle it is fit for, So it is not actually a stress analysis for which certifying engineer required. So now on, in case you encounter this question, you can confidently say that we are doing the design as per Part 4, which is design by rule, and according to 47, we don't require a certifying engineer.
So just to summarize, where it's designed by code, designed by rule, you don't need a certifying engineer, but if it was designed by analysis, you would.
Yeah. In fact, there is a table in Appendix 47. There is a table 47-5, and that is where clearly it is mentioned that certifying engineer is required only when you do fatigue analysis following Part 5 of Division 2.
Very clear. Thank you very much. If we can move on to question 3 on the slide deck now. So the third question we received on the aspect is, how do we verify the basic capability, the technical capability, and the professional practices for the responsible charge as required per Appendix 47, Section 6, Subpart B?
Yeah, this is important, but we need not worry too much about this jargons. It is actually copied from that National Society for Professional Engineers. They are talking about capability, professional capability, and basic capability, technical capability, etc. The intent here is not that you as a manufacturer or you as an employer to do the assessment, to conduct an exam and assess the capability. No, that is not the idea. Idea is that you should focus on this. You should write in your system, in the quality program, in such a manner that these parts are taken care of. I'll just give you one example. Like if you say that your designers meet the requirement of educational qualification of an engineering degree of a 4-year minimum duration, etc., and that will take care of the technical capability and basic capability. Basic capability is nothing but general maths skill. So it is expected that a graduate engineer having spent 4 years in the campus would meet all these requirements. So you can just accept that as it is. Professional practice, again, it is coming from the experience. So when you say that the designer should have a 4-year experience, it is expected that they know about the rules, they know about the challenges, the risks, actually what they're talking about, legal risk. The designer should be aware of some of the jurisdictional requirement, regulatory requirement, and should take care of that. So a person having that kind of experience are expected to meet this requirement.
Excellent, thank you very much. The fourth question is, do we need to change our current system entirely and replace the existing design personnel to meet the requirements of Appendix 47? I imagine this is a critical question for most manufacturers.
Yes. So please don't worry about it. You whatever system you have to just do a little bit, kind of add-on. You have to identify the criteria for designating a responsible charge. If you are not able to find a responsible charge within your organization, you have two options. You can employ one, you can hire one, or you can subcontract. It is permitted by the code that you can subcontract. You can hire a certifying engineer as a responsible charge. You can give a, it need not be a full-time employment. It can be a part-time employment. You can engage him as a responsible charge and then focus on existing, staff and qualify them over a period of time. When they acquire the enough knowledge and the training they get, they can be qualified in future. So don't worry about the changing the existing system really, in that sense.
I suppose one of the follow-on questions to that is, what would be the timeline that manufacturers need to make the changes by?
Yeah, the timeline, in a sense, these requirements are mandatory. Appendix 47 requirements are mandatory. So today, if you are going to do a design of a pressure vessel, you need to have a responsible charge qualified, that is having basic engineering degree plus 4 years experience, as we have already discussed. In case you have people having lesser experience, you can still utilize them if your design is not so critical. You can qualify them as a responsible charge. You can, only thing you need to address it in your quality program. In case that is not possible, you can employ or you can hire on a part-time basis.
Excellent, thank you, Partha. And the fifth and final question relating to design is, according to Appendix 47, Section 5, certain design activities require additional work experience. Can it be achieved concurrently with basic minimum required experience to qualify as a responsible charge?
Yeah, because many are thinking in industry today that, as we said, 4-year experience is a minimum required experience as per Appendix 47. And then people think that, then they have to have additional 2 years of experience in numerical analysis, again another 2 year in fatigue. So like that. No, it is not that. If someone is having experience in all those design activities like numerical analysis and fatigue during that 4-year basic experience itself, if they are exposed to that, that is counted, that is good enough. You don't have to have additional experience in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Partha. So the second part of the webinar, I'm now going to hand over to Carlida, who's our ASME Service Manager, who is going to discuss the topic of NDT, which is also a common theme in the joint meetings of discussion. Okay, Carl, over to you.
It's a pleasure to go through the NDT section of this webinar with you. I want to start the presentation with a short overview. So Section 1 and Section 8 are the design sections where we'll find the quality requirements for our NDT procedures. These sections are supported by Section 5, which is the section where we will find the procedures for the NDE operation. Especially on that one, I want to point out that it's important to be aware of the fact that through the different sections, there might be a difference in the code edition of the referenced SMTC. So Section 8 and Section 1 may handle this one different. But let's step into Section 1. In Section 1, the NDT personnel qualification requirements are outlined in PW50. Manufacturers producing boiler where RT and UT is used, they need to have a written procedure in place, where SNT TC1A or CP189 should be used as a guideline. In case the manufacturer uses phased array or Toft technique, the requirements of Section 5 mandatory Appendix 2 need to be considered. So on the next slide, we will go for the certification. And the certification program is used to ensure that the NDE personnel is qualified and certified properly. National or international certification programs are designed to meet the examination and demonstration requirements as specified in the employer's written practice. They ensure that the assessments leading into the certification are fair, valid, and reliable, maintaining on a high standard of competency out in the industry. Another important element is that the manufacturer's quality control system. The system must describe as a minimum the training, the experience, the qualification, and the certification process for all NDE examiner. So for the qualification, the requirement is important to know that the NDE personnel, including the Level 3, must be qualified by any examination. In case advanced RT or UT techniques are used, the Level 3 personnel needs to meet the requirements of mandatory Appendix 2. Whenever recertification is required, the recertification of all Level shall follow the written practice based on the acceptable edition of SNT TC1A or CP189, which shall be outlined in the Code of Construction. By the next slide, we will switch from section 1 into section 8 diff 1, where we are still in the design code. And in section 8 diff 1, paragraph UW54 references to T120 of article 1 in section 5. So if RT or UT is used, we got to follow the requirements of T120. 120E describes the education requirements, 120F the training, 120G the experience, 120I the qualification, 120J the certification, and finally 120K the limited certification requirements. Before we go into the details with this article, we just have a quick look at section 8 diff 2. So for 8 diff 2, we will find the same reference, except the additional requirements outlined in paragraph 7.3 is the liquid penetration examination, which is also listed. To get a more detailed view, let's step into T120. T120 outlines the requirements for qualification and certification of personnel by the employer. The requirements are applicable when the referring code section refers to. The certification is employer-based, which means the employer must have a so-called written practice. The written practice is used to describe the education, the training, the experience, and the examination requirements for qualification and certifying NDE personnel of all levels. So the next point, T120E, points out the requirements of the written practice. The written practice must either be based on SNT TC1A 2020 edition or ASNT CP189 2020 edition, but with the following changes. Clause 1.5 of SNT TC1A is not applicable for a specific and practical examination. The technical performance outlined in clause 10.2 needs to be taken prior recertification. And the level 3 needs to pass an additional examination as it is required in clause 8.7 of SNT TC1A. So further, exam batch, which is preparing an NDE procedure, shall be graded with a passing grade of at least 80%. And additional practical exams are required in case the NDE level 3 does perform practical examinations or administrates them for others. The composite grade out of all examinations shall be at least 80%. We should also note that the procedure and the practical examination exam is only required once per employer. So in the next paragraph, which is T20F, we will get into the training requirements. A certification against ISO 9712 can be seen as part of central certification scheme, but it may not be entirely accepted. In case it's specified in the written practice, credits can be taken for training, experience, and part of the examination to fulfill the requirements of SNT TC1A. Meaning the general examination for level 1 and 2 and the basic and method examination for level 3 can be credited. So from the training, we will get now into the additional experience requirements, which are outlined in T120G. So if the technique used is computed radiographic, digital radiographic, phased array, or TOFT, or full matrix capture, which is also ultrasonic method, used, the NDE personnel needs to be additionally qualified in training, experience, and examination, as specified in mandatory Appendix 2. The employer has to outline this one in the written practice to incorporate the requirements and fulfill the requirements of S&T TC1A. Followed by T120I, which handles the qualification examination requirements. Whenever the reference in code section does not require the qualification in accordance with this article, the qualification may be just a simple demonstration. This demonstration is used to ensure that personnel is competent, and they are capable of performing this examination against the written procedure. In case the code does not require the qualification or does not refer to Article 1, a simple demonstration cannot be used to fulfill the requirements. From the examinations, we will now go into the certification section, which is T120J. And it shall be pointed out that it is the responsibility of the user to ensure that NDE personnel is qualified and certified. This shall be outlined in the quality program of the employer. A certification remains valid, even a change in the addition of SNTC 1A is mandatory already, which means the previous certification will remain valid until its expiry date. For the new certification or any recertification, we have to ensure that the latest edition of S&T TC1A referenced in the design code shall be used. So finally, we will get into T120K, which is the last paragraph out of T120, which handles the limited certification. A limited certification may be used, for example, for thickness measurements by UT, where not all the operations of a specific method are used. This certification may require difference in training and experience than those outlined in S&T TC1A. These limitations must be clearly stated in the written practice and on the letter of certification for the NDE personnel. So now we are getting away from the ASME boiler and pressure vessel code straight into the AS&T TC1A, which is an employer-based certification program and making the employer responsible for managing the entire qualification and certification process. He's also required to implement a written practice that outlines the requirements for education, for training, experience, and examination. This written practice needs to be approved by NDE Level 3 to ensure the compliance with S&T TC1A. So what's the employer's role in this system? The employer is responsible to oversee the entire process of qualification, examination, and grading. He actively needs to be involved in the training, examination, and certification process. So that's the difference to a central certification system. It does offer greater flexibility and does customize needs specifics of the employer to be pointed out. So for the certification, we got 3 different levels, level 1 to level 3. Followed by the ISO 9712, which is it's not an employer-based certification program. It is a central certification system. The system is managed and overseen by a certification body and guarantees to be fair, valid, and reliable. The authorized qualification body is independent from the employer and is responsible for preparing, administration, and the qualification exams. The employer's role in this certification process is to nominate the candidate for the exam and to submit the required documents to the certification body. What's different? The NDT personnel can be certified according to a specific sector where they are working into, for example, casting or rolling, which is different to the approach from S&T TC1A. What is similar to S&T TC1A, we also got the 3-level system. So the following slide compares the two standards with the requirements and gives a brief overview, I want to point out that, for example, the specific examination for each method is mandatory in ISO 9712, but cannot be credited for ASME TC1A, where it's also mandatory, meaning this one has to be done under the certification of ASME TC1A scheme. While the general and basic examination of a level 2 or 3 can be credited from ISO 9712 certification. Finally, I want to point out some of the most common challenges we are facing through our daily work with these different approaches of the standards. Keeping up to date with the standards and codes and its implementation in the quality program can be quite challenging due to the continuous change of the standards. Especially the different approach from a central certification scheme to an employer-based certification scheme may also lead into some confusion. Implementation of Appendix 47 and the NDT requirements does require resources like personal training, qualification, equipment, and especially with an organization with limited resources, this can be challenging. Another part which can be challenging is the documentation of all the requirements. Due to various documents and requirements throughout all these standards, it does require a stable system and an accurate traceability. So finally, to conclude this presentation, I would like to emphasize that such implementation of Appendix 47 and ASME TC1A requires careful planning and adequate resources. However, with the right team, we all can ensure to meet the requirements and keep a high quality level. Thanks for your attention, and I will hand over to Nigel. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carl, for that presentation on NDT. Similar to the first part of the webinar, we've got a few frequently asked questions which have been proposed by clients. So if we can move on to the first question. The first question that's been raised is, what are the specific responsibilities of a level 3 NDT person, and how do they change and how do they differ from a level 1 and level 2 personnel? And I think you've also prepared a visual to sort of help highlight the differences as well, Carl, for your answer.
Thank you. Good question. Well, there are several different duties of a level 1 to a level 3. Level 3 should be aware basically of all the duties and the work to be conducted through a level 1 and a level 2. But especially for the level 3, he's possessed to have excessive knowledge in all the NDT methods and techniques. He's supposed to develop, qualify, and approve procedures, especially in accordance with the code requirements. He's supposed to direct and guide all the level 1 and 2 through the daily work, and he's also supposed to be the specialist for interpreting codes and standards.
Yeah, very clear. And I think just to be quite clear, the level 3, they also perform all the duties of the level 1 and level 2 as well, don't they?
Correct, yes.
Okay, if we can go to the second question then. So the second question relates to a company which already has an employee holding ASNT level 3 qualification for radiography, penetrant testing, ultrasonic testing, and magnetic particle testing. And the question is, what additional examinations are to be included in the SNT written practice to qualify them as the company level 3?
Good question. So to be appointed as a level 3 in the company has to line out the requirements in the written practice. And in addition to the already to the certification already in place, the Level 3 has to conduct a specific examination, the practical examination, plus the additional procedure writing to be aligned with the code requirements.
Thank you very much, Carl. And the third and final question relating to NDT is from a company that their Level 3 has the certificate valid until 2025 based on an earlier code edition of ASME. So the question is it necessary to administer additional examinations as per ASME Section 5, Section T120, Article 1 immediately, or can they wait until their next recertification?
Well, the candidate was qualified or certified against a previous edition with a certain recertification interval, which means in this situation he can wait until his certification expires and then immediately reconduct against the new code edition.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the presentation on NDT and also for the earlier presentation by Partha on design. So that concludes our webinar today on ASME and the specific questions relating to design and NDT, which have been common themes in joint reviews. Thank you very much for joining our webinar and all of the questions we received. If you have got any more questions, please post them to us and we will respond by email. But please also keep up to date with any other changes on our website, which is LRQA.com. As we said this morning, LRQA has been providing ASME services for 50 years now, and we have global reach and local insight. We have many authorized inspectors, many AIs in countries globally around the world. And we hold endorsements for nuclear, for repair, in service, as well as new construction. For a large number of the workforce are AIs. We're on a number of committees, and we help lead the ASME expertise and insight. And we also provide a lot of other services which are associated with ASME services, such as European directives, such as like the Pressure Equipment Directive and UK versions as well. We also do a lot of training as well on all the different ASME sections and services that can be delivered on site or remotely using safe and secure technology. So thank you again to our experts, Carl and Partha, for their respective topics. And thank you again for joining our webinar, and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.